All right, we continue to follow breaking news here on CBS Sports HQ, where the Raiders have locked up their franchise quarterback for another few years. Las Vegas and Derek Carr have agreed to a 3-year, $121.5 million extension that confirmed by Josina Anderson. It includes a no-trade clause, keeps him in the desert through the 2025 season, and he's set to earn more than $141 million, counting his current contract. All part of what's been an exciting offseason in the AFC West, even though Carr obviously staying in Vegas. His team made a lot of changes. Davante Adams, Chandler Jones among those there in the division, which includes Russell Wilson, Khalil Mack, and Juju Smith-Schuster, all coming into the AFC West, which is sure to be loaded. All right, let's bring in NFL analyst Pete Prisco to the table. And Pete, what do you think about this 3-year, $121.5 million extension for Carr and the Raiders?
Well, you had to do it. Look, you look around the quarterback landscape as we head to the draft and look at the teams that are trying to solve that position. And until you solve it, you have all kinds of issues. So Derek Carr solves it, and it gives them a guy who they know can put up big numbers, can lead them to the postseason, which he did. And it's really not that prohibitive a deal when you look at it. It's only 3 more years. Yes, the price is a little steep, probably where you rank him, but you have to go up to a certain number when you're given an extension. So I get it. I understand it. It makes sense. And you have to keep your quarterback in the fold, or else you're going to be chasing him year in and year out.
Pete, how would you describe the end of their season, which included a postseason run, to now on the precipice of the NFL draft? How do you describe it now that we've gone through the combine, through free agency, and getting ready for the next phase of that?
Well, I think it all starts with hiring the new coach. Look, I was a big critic of Josh McDaniels when he was in Denver, and I think Josh McDaniels will be the first one to tell you that he wasn't ready for that position. I do think he's going to be much better the second time around. He's a brilliant offensive mind, and he learned from his mistakes. I think what happened to him humbled him a little bit. So you get a great offensive mind in there. You go get Davante Adams, who's a big-time receiver, and they needed to get that. And now you have Derek Carr locked up. I think it's been then they add Chandler Jones. I think this has been a really good offseason, for Derek Carr because he gets the money and he gets a good offensive coach. B, for the team, and I think Dave Ziegler, the new general manager, stepped in and done a really good job. I like where the Raiders are heading. The problem is they're in the SEC of the NFL, the AFC West.
Yeah, we'll talk about those odds, which we flashed for a second, but we're watching video of their time at Fresno State where they were electric there. Pete, once we learn the news that Carr and Adams are going to be reunited, have you become more excited, less excited with that?
No, I like that idea. Look, Adams, the whole talk about Adams being close and chummy with Rodgers, I've been told that wasn't exactly true, but he is close and chummy with Derek Carr, and they're very good friends, even though they aren't exactly the same type of person in terms of how they handle themselves, but I think they're very good friends, and it makes sense. I think that's a great move for the Raiders. Normally, I'd sit here and say, you give up a lot for an older receiver, but when you look at what this league has become, everybody's trying to win now. The landscape has changed. It's not just about stockpiling draft picks and building for the future. Everybody wants it right now, where right now society and the NFL is no different. And we saw that with the Rams. We're seeing it more and more with these moves made in the offseason, and I don't think the Raiders are any different. So I like the move to go get Adams.
Odds makers, you mentioned that this division is much like the SEC, football's version of that. Odds makers have Vegas as the 4th and worst team in the division. Do you agree with that?
Maybe on paper right now, but I could see them being ahead of the Broncos on paper as well. The Broncos still have some questions. And when you look at the top 2 teams, what is Kansas City going to do in terms of offense? And yeah, they have Patrick Mahomes, but they no longer have Tyreek Hill. They've added, Valdez-Scantling and Smith-Schuster in free agency, but they need to get some deep speed. That changes the dynamic of the offense. And the other thing is they're going to, change what they do offensively. So there's questions there. The Chargers have loaded up in the offseason. I love what they've done. And we know Russell Wilson's now in Denver, but they also have some issues. And so I think when you look at it on paper, they're the 4th team. But would it shock anybody to see any one of those teams win that division? I think it's going to be competitive week in and week out. It's going to be a war inside the division, and it might come down to who can stay healthy throughout the entire season, because it's going to be fun watching footballs fill the air, because every single one of those teams can chuck it around.
Pete, get you out of here on this as you get ready for the draft, as the Raiders get ready for the draft. What do you think they'll target? Obviously not high-end picks to start with, but still some gaps to be filled there.
Yeah, there's some gaps. I think right tackle is an issue. You know, what do you do with Alex Leatherwood? Remember, he was drafted to play right tackle, struggled there. They moved him inside the guard. Didn't play great there either, but he's now been in the system, or at least been in the league for a year, new system, but he's been in the league for a year. So does he play right guard? Does he play right tackle? If he plays right guard, they need to get a right tackle. I think defensive line, the interior, they could use help inside as well. And then you look at the secondary. Remember, Rock Ya-Sin was acquired in a trade. They got him, but they need help at cornerback as well. So there's a lot to like about this team, but there's also some major questions.
Pete, certainly appreciate it. Pete Prisco joining us here with the breaking news on CBS Sports HQ. Again, it's been a lot of change out in Vegas. Just last year, you still had Mike Mayock, John Gruden. Then it was Rich Bisaccia. None of those guys are still there with that franchise. In comes Dave Ziegler, Josh McDaniels, but the one constant that has been there has been their quarterback since 2014, since he got in the league, and that would be Derek Carr. And today, DC4 gets that 3-year, $121.5 million extension. They've gotten him some help, re-signed some key players, but again, the draft will be key to get this team ready to compete with what Pete Prisco says is the SEC version of the best division in football. All right, when we come back, another 1-minute break, so that's 60 seconds. When we come back, the fantasy impact. I haven't talked too much about Davante and Derek Carr. We got Dave Richard on the other side to answer that. Maybe what about Waller and Jacobs?
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.